Hello and welcome. My name is Rosalind Bubb and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar today and to say thank you very much for joining me. The topic of the webinar is how to be happy and peaceful after childlessness, and it's taking place today as part of the We Are Worthy Summit. I'd like to begin by just letting you know what it is we're going to cover today. I'll start off by saying a little bit about myself and let you know why I'm doing this, and then we'll touch on why it is that you might be watching. And I'm going to introduce you today to my 6-step plan to help you to be happy and peaceful after childlessness, and we'll go through that plan step by step, and we'll look and see how it is that you can be happier and more peaceful, whatever it is that you're actually experiencing at this point in your life. So I shall begin telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Rosalind Bubb. I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist since 2004. I've had 12 miscarriages and I don't have any children. So I'm childless not by choice. And I'm actually in a very unusual position of being really happy and peaceful and well in spite of being childless and in spite of having 12 miscarriages. And I know that that's quite an unusual state to be in. And I don't actually have any regrets and I don't wish that it was different. And that's actually why I do what I do, to be able to support other people wherever it is that they're finding themselves in their lives at this point. So now I'd like to actually touch on why it is that you might be watching this. So it's possible that you're childless and that you're childless not by choice. And you might also be wondering whether you're going to be childless. You might not know at this point what's going on. You may be having infertility treatment. Maybe you're wondering whether to stop that. You may be familiar with the idea, Jodie Day talks about 50 ways not to be a mother or not to be a parent. So there could be all sorts of reasons why you're watching this and why you might be childless. You might have tried to have a baby and you may not have been able to conceive. You may have had IVF, you may have had quite a lot of IVF. You may have tried to adopt. It's possible that you become pregnant but that you've had miscarriages. You might have been prevented by circumstance. There are all sorts of reasons, as I said, 50 ways or more as to why circumstances might have prevented you from having children. And it's also possible that you have been pregnant, but that for whatever reason, you were forced to terminate that pregnancy. So whatever state you find yourself in now, childless or not, we may be sharing some feelings in common. It's quite likely that you might be feeling unhappy about being childless. You might feel sad, you might feel disappointed, angry, perhaps you feel hurt, invalid, left out. And chances are that you're wanting to find some way through this. And you may have already tried some ways to make yourself feel happier in the circumstances. You might have tried talking about it, you might have had counselling. Sometimes people talk about creating a plan B, something else to do with your life instead of having children. And all of those things are really useful and very valuable and can be really helpful. And they might not be enough. It might not be enough to actually stop you feeling unhappy. So I want to let you know that it is possible to be happy and peaceful, even if you're childless or it's looking as if you might be. And that you can live a happy and fulfilled and enjoyable life. And the 6-step plan which I have for helping you to be happy and peaceful is a tried and tested process. I've used it on myself and I've used it with lots of clients. And it's something which you can use for yourself. So I think now is the time to begin to introduce you to that. First of all, I want to talk to you about how I came to create the 6-step plan for being happy and peaceful after childlessness. So between the ages of 32 and 39, I had 12 miscarriages. And that includes one when I was 14 weeks pregnant, one ectopic pregnancy and one miscarriage after IVF. And I actually started to become a therapist between my 2nd and 3rd miscarriage. And in fact, my husband and I stopped trying to have children 9 years ago. And I'm now very happy and peaceful in spite of 12 miscarriages and being childless. And so I wanted to let you know what my focus has been on since I've been a therapist since 2004. I've had my focus in 3 main places. One of them was healing from my own miscarriages, and I've spent a lot of time making sure that I've been able to do that, and it's been very effective. The second is that I've worked with people generally as a therapist, helping people to be happy, peaceful and well and effective in their lives, and I've been doing that since 2004. And then the third thing is, since 2013, in addition to my general therapy work, I've also been supporting anybody who's had a miscarriage. And I do that by working with people individually, one-to-one, and I also have what are called tap-along videos. You'll hear me talking about 2 self-help tools which I use with my clients. One of them is EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, sometimes known as tapping. So I've created tap-along videos. And I also have an online miscarriage support program, which consists of 19 tap-along videos that people can use anywhere, anytime, anywhere that they have access to the internet. And those are very effective for helping people who've had miscarriage to feel happier. So that's been my focus since 2013. And then last autumn, in autumn 2017, I met Nikki Fletcher. And she was in the process then of creating a new online magazine, the Childless Not by Choice magazine. And that's been going since December 2017. And we agreed when we talked that I would create an EFT tap-along video for each one of those online magazines. They come out every 2 months. And so that's what I've been doing. There's an EFT tap-along video about how to be happier and more peaceful when you're childless in this Childless Not by Choice magazine. And as part of the process of creating these videos, I really began to look and see in detail, how did I come to be really happy and peaceful in spite of being childless and in spite of having 12 miscarriages? Because there's not the normal state. Most people don't feel like that in these circumstances. So I looked to see, how did I do that? What actually got me to that state? And I identified 6 components, 6 elements, and that is what has gone together to make the 6-step plan for you to be happy and peaceful after childlessness. Now, before we go any further, I just want to stress something, which is this is not a linear process. So although there are 6 steps in my plan, it's not a linear process. In other words, we don't start at number 1 and then go down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in order. It's not like that at all. These are 6 components, 6 elements, which can be really helpful. And what I've actually discovered is when I'm working with people is that we move about seamlessly between the steps, backwards and forwards, a number of steps in a session quite commonly. And the other thing that's worth knowing is that any of these steps will help. They'll all help to take you towards being more happy and peaceful, even if you're childless. But actually, if you do all of the 6 steps, that adds up to a very powerful combination of tools. So in a little while, I'm going to actually tell you what these 6 steps are. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce you to a key idea which I use with my clients and which I think will really help to make what we're talking a lot clearer. So I'm going to talk about your emotional rain barrel. Now, in the United Kingdom, we don't call it a rain barrel, we call it a water butt. And I believe in Australia and New Zealand, it's known as a rainwater tank. So, and I think in the USA, it's a rain barrel. So what a rain barrel is it's some kind of container, often a barrel shape, that stands below a roof of a building, and the water that drains off the roof comes down the drainage pipe into the rain barrel and fills it up. And you can use the water that's in the rain barrel, you can dip a watering can in there or have a little tap and fill the watering can, and then use the water from the roof to water plants with. So that's what it is. And I'm going to tell you, I've been using this analogy about your emotional rain barrel for the last 10 years. And where it came from is the memory of the rain barrel which my grandmother had in her garden when I was a little girl. And it was standing beside her garage where her car was kept. And I think it was bigger than me when I remember this particular occasion, so I wasn't very big, and the rain barrel was tall. And I can remember seeing the rain barrel was totally full up with water. It didn't have a lid, and the water was full right to the very top at that. But actually it was so full that the water was kind of forming a kind of a cushion on the top. There was a skin of water pressure, a tension kind of holding it in place. And I believe that's called a meniscus. So here was the rain barrel, and then there was this water right full to the very top, kind of brimming like that. And as a child, I touched that and I broke the water tension, and lots of water suddenly poured over the edge, which was total shock. I wasn't expecting that. And it left a big impact on me. So I've remembered this idea that you can have your rain barrel that can be so full that there's this cushion of water, and then just one tiny touch, just one more drop of water is all it takes for all of that water, lots of water, to kind of pour over the edge, much more than just the drop that came in. So I'd like you to imagine that you have an emotional rain barrel, that we all have an emotional rain barrel. So when we're born, we have our rain barrel and it's empty. And then as we go through life and as unpleasant things happen, we get more and more water accumulating in our emotional rain barrel. And we can reach a point if enough unpleasant events, so I'm talking about things like bereavements, shocks, illnesses, accidents, traumas, that kind of thing. If we have enough of those, our rain barrel can fill up right to the very top, like that. And then we can even have, full to overflowing, a meniscus on the top. And in those circumstances, it only takes one more drop of something happening for a lot of water to suddenly kind of pour over the edges. And how that looks emotionally can be something small can happen, and then we react in a way that's disproportionate to the amount of water that came in. So something small happens, but we feel like we can't cope, we feel very upset. There are emotions kind of overflowing, which aren't actually consistent with the amount of stuff that happened, the little drop that came in. So sometimes the people I work with have actually reached that point. Their rain barrel is full right to the very top, and they no longer have any emotional reserves or capacity left. It only takes one little bit for them to feel like it's too much and for it to be uncomfortable. So what I do when I work with people is I help them how to empty, teach them and support them in emptying their rain barrel. Sometimes we take large amounts of water out, sometimes we take less. But what we're doing is we're creating some space at the top of the rain barrel. It might be quite a lot. And that allows more stuff to come in, more things to happen in life, more water to come in. And we still don't overflow emotionally. So when you have this space in your emotional rain barrel, you have a lot more emotional capacity, a lot more emotional resilience, and a lot more emotional reserves to deal with whatever it is that life is throwing at you on a day-to-day basis. So this is a key idea which I talk about throughout the 6-step plan. And it can be very helpful to think about that. So now I'm actually going to talk to you about the different steps in my 6-step plan for helping you to be happy and peaceful after childlessness. So this is step 1. Step 1 involves removing the painful emotions from upsetting and traumatic memories. So I have a question. What's in your emotional rain barrel? So any kind of upsetting or unpleasant memory, this is what fills up our emotional rain barrel. And so I'm talking about things like bereavements, accidents, shocks, serious illnesses, and there can be a lot of unpleasant memories coming from the IVF process if you've had that. If you've had miscarriages, there can be lots of really unpleasant memories there. All sorts of things to do with infertility and being childless can all accumulate in our emotional rain barrel. They can all fill up one by one each time something happens. And the effect of that is that it can really be stuck in there. It's stuck in our emotional rain barrel. It's stuck in our bodies. It's stuck in our emotional systems, in our energy systems. And the result of all of these unpleasant memories being stuck in our system is that they can contribute to us feeling scared, anxious. They can contribute to us feeling sad, low, depressed. If we have any kind of physical illness, it can make the symptoms worse. It can make pain worse if we're experiencing that. And it's not commonly known about, but it is possible to take the painful emotions away from upsetting and traumatic memories. And people don't know that you can do that. So before we do this process, and I use 2 self-help techniques, EFT and TAT, for doing this, before we do that, it can be these painful and sometimes traumatic memories can be intrusive, so they can pop up. It's like you didn't want to think about them and suddenly they're here, whether you want to think about them or not, sometimes at really inconvenient times. And so that's before we do these techniques. And then afterwards, instead of being here, it's as if they gently float down and they don't bother us in the same way. And sometimes people describe it as being like watching it on television. So you can see that that event happened, you can see the memory on television, it's over there, and it doesn't hurt in the same way, it doesn't feel connected to us in the same way, it feels much more distant, it feels much less personal and more neutral. And that can be a real relief. If it was something that was like this and really painful, and then it's over there and it's disconnected, that can feel a great deal better. And it gives us space in our emotional rain barrel. And so the two techniques I use, EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques tapping, and TAT, Tap Acupressure Technique, I'm going to tell you a lot more about what those are later. But what they allow us to do using these techniques is it allows us to release these painful emotions easily and gently. You don't have to talk about it in the process, and we take a lot of care to make sure that you're not re-traumatized, you don't re-experience it, you don't get re-traumatized. And you can talk about it if you want to, but you really don't have to, and that's an important thing. And using these techniques and taking the pain away from really upsetting memories helps us to feel better. It's a huge relief when there are things which we no longer have to stop ourselves from thinking about because they don't hurt anymore. And this is a skill for life. Learning how to do this, and I can teach you how to do this, is a really valuable skill, and it's a skill you'll have for life. So that's the first step in your 6-step plan for helping you to be happy and peaceful after childlessness. Step 2 involves facilitating any grieving which it would be helpful to do. Now, grief is not talked about a great deal, and you might be thinking, I don't want to do that, thank you very much. I'm not interested in thinking about grief. It can be quite a frightening prospect. And sometimes people don't realise that when we're childless not by choice, or if we're contemplating that we might be, there can be a lot of grief involved there for the family that you haven't had or that you may not have. And grief from any kind of loss can be in your rain barrel. So there may be events which we haven't fully grieved for, and they're all accumulating in your rain barrel, and they can be part of what is potentially filling us up right up to the very top. And so if we can do the grieving that's involved, if we can facilitate that and make it easier, then we're draining that grief out of your emotional rain barrel, which helps to increase your emotional reserve. Now, something that people don't always realise is that if you have a new grief, that can trigger old grief. So, for example, if you're dealing with elderly parents dying, you might find that the grief of losing a parent triggers the grief from miscarriages, from not being able to have children, from all sorts of bereavements and losses in the past. And suddenly, you're not just dealing with the current grief, you're dealing with all the old stuff from the past as well. And that can be really upsetting and emotional and overwhelming. So it can be very valuable to actually be able to do the grieving very gently, but it would be helpful to do. And grief can be linked to trauma and unpleasant events. So you can see how these two steps 1 and 2 are linked. So it's really common for us to push our grief down, to try not to feel it. People try and seal it up somewhere, maybe in their head or in their heart, so that we don't feel it. And that's a place that we don't go to, just because we're scared of opening it up and we're scared of being swept away in the immensity of it all. So it's a really understandable thing that we often don't want to grieve. Now, the good news is the two tools I use, EFT and TAT, are really helpful for facilitating grieving. We can grieve very safely and easily, and it can be done very manageably and gently, really gently and kindly. We can ease and soften really painful emotions. We can ease and soften the grief. We can ease the memories. And all of this can be immensely helpful and help to give you more space in your emotional rain barrel, which helps you to have more emotional resilience, reserves, capacity, and just is a really key element in being able to be happy and peaceful on a day-to-day basis. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 involves changing any limiting or disempowering beliefs which you might have about being childless. So, what limiting or disempowering beliefs do you have about being childless? Now, you might think, I don't know, how do I identify what a limiting or a disempowering belief is? Well, there's a key shortcut to doing that. What are you saying, either to yourself or to other people? Sometimes we say these to other people, but sometimes we're just saying them to ourselves. So if you actually listen, what am I saying to myself? Here are some examples of limiting beliefs, disempowering beliefs. So, I'm unhappy. It's not fair. I can't be happy without children. I can't bear the prospect of not being a parent. What's the point of my life without children? You might be saying things to yourself like, I'm not worthy, I'm invalid, I'm a failure. Maybe you're scared of getting old without children. You might be feeling angry or stuck. So any of these are examples of limiting and disempowering beliefs about what your life is like. So my question is, would you like to be able to change them? Now, the two tools which I use, EFT and TAT, are incredibly effective at changing limiting and disempowering beliefs. And we can actually see them change in front of our eyes when we do the work together. And I often ask people to, when we identify a limiting belief, something which is making them unhappy, which they're saying to themselves, which doesn't make them feel empowered or peaceful or powerful, then we rate it on a scale of 0 to 10 and see how strong it is, where, you know, if it's 8 out of 10, that's pretty high. And then when it's 0 or 1 out of 10, then that's reduced dramatically. And we can actually see these disempowering and limiting beliefs disappear in front of our eyes. It really happens. It's not difficult to do. And it's an enjoyable process to actually do this. So I want to give you an example of the impact that can have. This is what one of my clients has said. She said, working with Rosalind got me from facing the fact that I can't be a mother terrifies me, to feeling this is okay. And if I can't be a mother, I'm blooming going to make the most of everything else which life has to offer, which I have. Now, the two things I've highlighted there, which I want to draw your attention, is before we did the work, she was terrified of not being a mother and actually facing it, that she can't be a mother. That was a terrifying prospect. And then afterwards, after we'd done the work together, this is okay. It's actually okay that she's not a mother. And then she talks about, I'm going to make the most of everything else which life has to offer, and I've done that. So that's the plan B bit that people talk about. But I just want to kind of emphasize how nice it is if you're not just trying to create the most of what life has got to offer, the plan B bit, but if you can actually do that from feeling, and this is okay. Whatever happens, this is okay, and I'm going to make the most of it. There's a big difference to just trying to kind of push your way through and make the most of it when actually it's not okay and it's still terrifying and painful and upsetting. So it's entirely possible to change these limiting and disempowering beliefs. And it's possible for you to do that, and it's really, really worthwhile to do. So that's step 3. Step 4 involves being able to deal with upsetting and triggering situations when they happen. Now, when we're childless not by choice, or if we're, kind of edging towards that, there can be a lot of upsetting situations which we can find ourselves in. They can trigger really strong emotions. And these can have a really strong impact, and they can last for a long time. You can find yourself feeling miserable for days or weeks after something happened. And it's not your fault. This is a really common reaction. So I've broken this down into 2 different kinds of triggering situations. So first of all, there are the random ones that happen with no warning. And for example, I'm talking about maybe you're standing in a queue at the supermarket, and in the queue next to you, a baby starts to cry. I can remember crying myself on one occasion under those circumstances. It was so upsetting. Another one might be when you see a pregnant woman when you're not expecting to, and it reminds you of what you haven't got and what you haven't had. When you suddenly are told that somebody is pregnant, family and friends, all of those are random events, and they can be really triggering and upsetting. They can trigger really strong emotions. Then there are the other kind of situation where they are much more predictable. We know that they're going to happen. Doesn't stop them being really upsetting though, and we can still worry about them. So for example, I'm talking about social events where you know there are going to be lots of children, there might be young families, or they're going to be talking about their children. And under those circumstances, we could feel really left out, really isolated and hurt. And they could be very, very strong emotions. And they can, I've experienced times when I felt upset for days after this kind of circumstance. And this is a really common reaction. So one of the 2 tools which I use, EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, sometimes known as tapping, involves tapping on energy meridian points on your body and also on your hands. And I know this looks completely mad. We're going to be talking about this in more detail later. But some of the things you can also do is tap on your fingers. You can tap or rub or hold. And so these techniques can be very discreet, and you can use them before, during, and after any of these triggering situations. So for example, before one of these events, one of the kinds that we know are going to happen, like I'm going to this event and I know there are going to be lots of children and I'm going to be the only one there, probably be the only one there without, and I usually feel really upset and isolated and distressed and lonely and like a failure and all of that kind of thing. So chances are you feel like that because it's happened in the past, you know what that's like. In other words, memories of that event are in your emotional rain barrel. They've filled it up. They're part of what's filling it up. And so what we can do is, using step one, we can take the pain away from those memories so that they no longer hurt. And so what that means is that when you're thinking about how it's going to go, you're not automatically informed by all of this, oh, this is how it was last time and the time before that, and it was so painful. That's not automatically there. We can clear those emotions, which gives you a much more sort of neutral starting point to anticipate how it's going to go. Chances are you may still be having some sort of dread in anticipation, and we can tap and reduce that too, and then, you know, maybe reduce it and remove it altogether. So that's how we can work before the event. Now, during the event, when these triggering and upsetting situations happen, as I said, there are some very discreet ways of using these tools. So I'm doing it now, but you wouldn't know. And I can teach you how to do that. And that can all help to lower the emotion, lower the emotional intensity in the moment, help you to regain your balance and feel more peaceful, whatever is going on. And then the last bit you can tap afterwards is to take those memories out of your emotional rain barrel as soon as they go in. In other words, we can take the pain away from what has just happened, or maybe what happened the day before or the week before, so that you can let it go, you can forget it, it doesn't hurt anymore, and it's not informing with dread your anticipation about how things are going to go in the future. So being able to deal with this kind of upsetting and triggering situation as it happens is really empowering. It can help us to feel powerful and in control, because we don't necessarily have choice about when we're in these circumstances, but we do have a choice about how upset we feel. And we're able to limit that and reduce it and do that on a regular basis. And that all really contributes to being able to feel happy and peaceful on a day-to-day basis. So that's step 4. Step 5 is about feeling emotionally balanced on a day-to-day basis. So how full is your rain barrel? How much space and capacity and emotional reserves do you have for more stuff to come in on a day-to-day basis? Because let's face it, even if we do drain water out of our emotional rain barrel, there's stuff coming in on a daily basis. Events are happening, things are stressful, you know, whatever it is, it all adds up to the emotional stress that we experience on a day-to-day basis. So do you have room for more water to come in is the question, for whatever it is that life is throwing at us. So there are 2 solutions to this. There are 2 sort of actions which we can take. Firstly, we can drain large quantities out of your emotional rain barrel, and that's the things we've been talking about. Easing and facilitating grief so that it's no longer hanging around, it's complete. Taking the emotional pain away from upsetting and traumatic memories. All of this is helping us to create more space. And so those are the kind of taking the large amounts of water out of your rain barrel. But what we can also do is, many rain barrels have a tap on them. There's a little tap which allows you to put your watering can underneath and fill up from the water that's in the rain barrel. And so I'm talking here about things which we can do on a day-to-day basis to kind of turn the tap and let some water come out. It might just be dripping out. So it means even though more stuff is coming in, stressful and upsetting events might be happening coming in, water's coming into our emotional rain barrel, water is also draining out at the same time. So that means we keep our emotional reserve, our emotional capacity. So my question about this step for you is, what habits and daily routines, what things can you do on a day-to-day basis that help to keep you emotionally balanced on a day-to-day basis? Now, there are a number of things which can be really helpful and valuable for this. So yoga can help a lot. Meditation can be really helpful. Prayer, if that's something that you like to do, is really useful. Journaling can be very, very valuable. Going for a walk, getting fresh air and exercise generally. All of those things are things which we can do on a day-to-day basis to help us to keep emotionally balanced and able to deal with whatever it is that life is throwing at us on a daily basis. And the 2 self-help techniques which I use, EFT and TAT, I think I might have mentioned, there's a simplified version. So we can do this very easily and simply and incorporate it into life in a very easy way on a daily basis. It's sometimes described as emotional acupuncture, but without the needles. And it's a way for us to open the tap on our rain barrel so that water is coming out, even if it's a little trickle or a drip, so that we're continuing to maintain our reserve, our emotional balance. And that can really contribute in a big way to us feeling happy and peaceful on a day-to-day basis. So that's step 5. Step 6 is about creating and inventing how you would like your life to be. And this one's really fun. So up until now, we've been talking about emptying your emotional rain barrel and keeping it like that. And what that allows us to do is to be okay whatever life brings. It allows you to be happy and peaceful on a day-to-day basis. But this is the really fun bit where you can actually see, well, okay, in addition to that, how would I actually like my life to be? If it was easy to envision a happy and peaceful life, a joyful and fulfilled life, what would that involve? And this can be a really enjoyable process, actually looking and seeing, what would you like? But what's interesting is what I discover is that when we work with the other steps, this bit kind of naturally arises. The actions, the things, people just naturally go, oh, I could do this. Oh, that's possible. I hadn't thought about that. How you'd actually like to live your life, these steps and actions just sort of naturally arise, they evolve. By all means, they are things you can actually sit down and think about. That's a great thing to do. But what I also discover is that it's just a natural process that happens when we work with the other 5 steps, is that we just naturally start to live a happier and more fulfilled life. Things become possible where they didn't seem possible before. We have ideas and freedoms. We don't have the same limiting beliefs. We have beliefs which are much more empowering. And I just want to remind you again, what I said at the beginning is that this isn't a linear process. So you don't have to go through the other steps before you get to this one. You can start this now. You can start creating and inventing how you would like your life to be now. You can create new beliefs. You can create new thoughts about how your life is empowering for you. So this step isn't the last. You can do this at any point throughout. And generally, that's actually what I find, is that we are working with this throughout the whole process. So that's step 6. So now I'm going to talk to you about EFT and TAT. These are the powerful and effective self-help tools which I've been referring to all the way through. So I'm a therapist as well as being a coach, and what that means is that I'm not just interested in what you're doing. I'm really interested in how you're feeling and in your emotional health and your emotional well-being and your physical health as well, because they're all linked. And so these tools help you to change the way you feel anytime you want to. That really is possible. So they are therapeutic tools. They help you to feel better. I can teach you how to do them for yourself. They're very easy. They are easy, they're simple, and they're flexible. They're easy to incorporate into daily life. And they are very gentle and very kind. A very kind way of taking care of your emotional well-being. So I'm going to go through them one by one. And they're both energy techniques. They're both sometimes described as energy psychology. Sometimes people call them emotional acupuncture, but without the needles. And what they do, these techniques, is they change how your emotions feel and they change how your body feels. And that can lead to improved health. It can help us to sleep better. We can feel less stressed. We can feel happier generally. And I'm going to warn you now, if you haven't come across these before, they both look mad. They look highly unlikely. You wouldn't think that doing this actually makes a difference, but it really does. So the first one is EFT, tapping, emotional freedom techniques. And as I think I showed you before, what that looks like is tapping on energy meridian points on your body and on your hands. And the tapping sends little pulses of energy through your energy system, which clears any blocks and releases any painful emotions, unpleasant emotions, and also illnesses and symptoms and all sorts of things reduce as a result of doing this. Now, as I said, this looks completely mad, and you don't have to believe in any of it. You don't have to believe that you've got energy meridians. You don't have to believe this is going to work. Just trying it. Usually people, when they tap, they feel better. That's the bottom line. Try tapping and you usually feel better. Things change. So I'm going to say nothing you need to believe in. The second one, TAT, tapas acupressure technique, looks even madder. If anything, that involves holding a pose like this and then putting your attention on certain statements. Again, seems highly unlikely. You wouldn't think that this is extremely powerful, but actually it's very, very powerful. Both of these techniques are used with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and they've both been used extensively with traumatized war veterans. So that just gives you an idea of to ease the trauma. And actually, both techniques have brought people who are really highly traumatized down to being within normal levels of trauma that you'd expect from your average member of the population. And what's more, it lasts. And we do this without having to talk about any of it. It's a very kind and gentle and effective way of working. So these are the two tools which I'll be working with you if you'd like me to do that. I use them on myself, and I can teach you how to do that. They're easy and gentle, and knowing how to do this, it really is a gift in your life. Being able to take care of upsetting emotions, reduce stress, physical symptoms, taking the pain away from unpleasant things that have happened, being able to grieve comfortably and safely and manageably. These really are gifts for life, which you can use for the rest of your life. And it's incredibly useful to actually learn how to do this. And it's not difficult. So I'm going to talk to you now about how I can help you to be happier and more peaceful. The first thing I offer is one-to-one therapy sessions with people. Wherever you are in the world, we can use Skype, FaceTime, or the telephone. And I can provide you with guidance, with support. I can actually help you to heal whatever it is you've experienced in your process, in your journey to wherever you've got to this point. We can actually help you to heal the unpleasant stuff. I can take you through the 6-step plan. We can tailor it exactly to you. And I can teach you how to be happy and peaceful, how to use these techniques for yourself on a day-to-day basis. So those are one-to-one sessions. The second thing that I do and that I offer are tap-along videos. Those are EFT tapping videos. I've been making tap-along videos since 2013. And how they work is you watch me and you copy what I say and you repeat. You repeat what I say and tap where I tap. So I'll be saying some things and you copy where I'm tapping and you just say what I'm saying after me. And the clever thing is that even if I'm not saying words which exactly match your situation, they may well be pretty close because each of my tap-along videos has a specific topic and they're all to do with healing emotionally after miscarriage or being childless. And so they may well apply to you anyway, but even if they don't, our subconscious brain maps across what I'm saying to your situation. So I might be saying this, but it goes, oh yeah, that's that. And it resolves that for you. So these are very easy and very simple. You don't actually have to think about anything or concentrate on anything when you're using a tap-along video. And as I said, people almost always feel better after they've tapped for the video than before they did it. It's just as simple as that. Watch, tap, feel better. That's how it works. So these videos are currently available in every edition of the Childless Not by Choice online magazine. And very shortly, I'll have a program of my own, which I'll be offering as well, specifically for childlessness. So the last thing which I offer is miscarriage support. Now, I don't know whether you've had a miscarriage, you might have had more than one, you might have had multiple ones. I have an online miscarriage support video program, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. And you can use it anywhere you have access to a smartphone or the internet on a tablet or laptop. There are 2 versions of this program. One is for people who are still trying to have a baby, and the other version is for anybody who's had lots of miscarriages, multiple miscarriages, or for people who may no longer be trying to have a baby. And you can use these miscarriage support programs no matter how long ago your miscarriage was. It's still very effective many years afterwards. And the one for people who are childless not by choice or who've had more than one miscarriage consists of 16 EFT tap-along videos. You can actually download them and then you can use them without the internet, or you can live stream them without having to download them onto a device so they don't take up any space. And what this miscarriage support program does is it allows you to drain the impact of your miscarriages out of your emotional rainbow. So when we've had miscarriages, we can have a lot of unpleasant situations that can mean really a lot, that can have all sort of added up in our emotional rainbow. And by using this program, you can help to take that out, to recover this emotional space, capacity and resilience. And it really is a gift. And it's never too late. It really doesn't matter how long ago it was. Chances are those memories are still in your rain barrel and we can take them out. And that is a huge relief. For there no longer to be pain when you think about these things happening. So that's the last thing which I offer. So this is my website, Peaceful by Choice, and I'd like to invite you just to sign up if you'd like to, and you will receive a number of free gifts. So the first thing is you'll receive your own copy of your 6-step plan for being happy and peaceful after childlessness. So this goes into the 6 steps in a lot more detail. It also contains a little awareness exercise for each of the steps, which can be really helpful for you to do, to just have a look at that. I will also send you a series of little videos. Each one addresses a different step in the plan. And you can begin that now. Remember what I said, that any one of those steps is helpful. And you can begin that now, as soon as you like, to help you to be more happy and peaceful after being childless. The second thing that I'll send you is a free EFT tap-along video. And the topic of that is easing the pain of childlessness. This will give you a chance to actually try a tap-along video for yourself, and it will give you a little taste of what tapping is like. And you can use that video as many times as you like, and remember what I said, tap with video, feel better. That's usually how it works, so you're very welcome to do that. And lastly, I'd like to invite you, if you'd like, to arrange some kind of informal chat with me, and we can see how I can help you, and we can talk about how you would like your life to be. You know, how could you be happier and more peaceful and live a really peaceful and fulfilled, enjoyable life? So these chats are very informal and friendly. There's no obligation whatsoever. I'd be delighted to have a chat, and you can arrange that through my website. Please contact me through my website. So we've come to the end of the webinar, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this and for joining me here today. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions, please do be in touch with me. I'd be delighted to answer either by email, or we can actually have a phone chat or speak on Skype, whatever would be helpful. And lastly, I would just like to wish you happiness and peace and a fulfilling and enjoyable life, wherever it is you find yourself now, wherever you are in the process. And I'd just like to say thank you, and I'm wishing you all the very best. Do be in touch.